Hey folks, I'm a little under the weather today, so apologies for my weird voice, but we're going to do another Deep Thoughts with Thro as I rebuild this tower. I have this really nice tower that I have this nice gradient on, and I realized that I built it wrong. So we're gonna build it again because whoopsies, I am who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. So here we go, build number 2 on this tower. Hey folks, and I just want to say this time I actually didn't tear down the entire build and rebuild it like I did in the last episode. Anyways, let's get into the topic of the day. The topic of the day is actually something that is a little bit kind of gosh, it's a little controversial for me specifically. It's failure, all right? I have such an issue with failing. I have such an issue with trying something, putting time and effort and heart and love into it, and it not working out. It's just such a problem that I have, and I think it stems from when I was a kid, where I was equally so good at pretty much everything, where like I didn't have to try and I just figured it out, right? Which is sort of true and sort of not at the same time. Like, I was a decent musician. I used to play euphonium. Shout out to like anyone who knows what that instrument is. And I practiced a lot. I played a lot. I played it for 6-7 years throughout middle school and high school. So it's not like I didn't try, but it was just something I just picked it up, and I like was decent at it, and then just got better and better over time. And I think music is something that I'm just inclined to, which is just weird to say, right? Like you see people who do art and you're like, wow, they just have a talent for doing art. And it's might be true, but at the same time, artists usually feel like, hey, you're just completely ignoring the fact that I've put years of my life into this and all of the practice and time. So like, yes, I'm decent in art, but it's because I do all of this all the time, right? And I'm getting better all the time. But sorry, I'm gonna have to make cuts throughout this because I have a cold again, and actually it's going away a lot quicker than the other one did. But I gotta cough and hack things up every now and then. Awful visual. Back to the topic of failure. So like, couple that me just being a decent musician as well as like I would try subjects at school. Like we'd get a new subject at school. I'd get into a new grade, and it wasn't like, oh, I just knew the stuff. Like I would just listen to the lecture, and for the most part, I'd get 80s, right? Sometimes the 70 and sometimes the 90, but I was a solid B student without really putting any effort in whatsoever. My sister, on the other hand, really put her heart and soul into her 80s, or B's and A's, right? Her 80s and 90s. And it just was I was that just average kid who was like, I'm not really terrible at this, but I'm not like a super genius, but I'm also not trying. So, I don't know. I don't really know. Anyways, the things that I did fail at, I never did again. It was something that was like, I don't want to put effort into this because obviously I'm not just inherently good at it, so I'm just not going to do it. And the other part was like, a lot of the times my parents were fantastic people, right? My mother did her best to raise my sister and I as a single mom, and I love her so much. But there was things got heated sometimes, and it was, raising two kids by yourself, coupled with like, a housing crisis in the early 2000s, coupled with like, just everything that life throws at you all the time. So please don't think badly of my mom, but like if I did something wrong, sometimes she would get really upset. Like, I'm a parent. I totally get that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I yell at my kids. I definitely don't hit my kids. But like, sometimes I get upset because things go wrong. And I think that me personally took that in a bad way at some point in my life, and was like, oh, but like, if I do things wrong, it's really, really bad. So like, don't even try it. You know what I mean? So you can't fail, which is a terrible outlook on life. But hey, I'm here, I'm doing my thing, and YouTube is one of those things that I was like, I'm just going to be great at this. I'm just going to start it up, and it's going to be super easy, and I'm going to love it. And wow, If you go watch my first video that I ever put out, oh man, is it bad? It's so bad. It's so bad. And I don't know why it was so bad, because I was watching Hermitcraft season 6, and I got the idea. I was like, yo, I'm going to make my own videos. So like I'm watching the best, and then that was what I put out. Ooh. Ooh. Anyways, but over the years, obviously I got better as I kept doing it. Practice makes better. And I think just recently in my life, as in like the last half to a decade, right? Half a decade to a decade, I finally realized, like, dude, it's okay if you fail. It's fine. Like, obviously, if you fail on something that's like big, that's probably not super great, but hopefully you have a support system that will help you out. And honestly, if you don't have a support system, like, please, I wish you the best. Like, reach out to people in your life, or, make some good friends, or find a good relationship. Like, you need a support system in life. You can't do everything by yourself. You need people around. Anyways, but I have a wonderful support system. I've got a great family. My partner is just the most incredible human being who is there for me all the time. And I'm in a great spot to fail on certain things, right? I have a very decent job, and if I failed at that job and I lost it, it would be really bad. That would be really, really bad. My family would have to change our way of living, right? And that is a huge, huge detrimental failure. I have a support system, though. I would find another job. I would try to like rebuild something akin to what I had, get back up maybe somewhere to where I was. But if I didn't have that support system, right, I wouldn't be able to fail, right? Or I would feel like I wouldn't be able to fail. But I think because I've been feeling like I can fail and I have a great support system, I'm finally dabbling in new things, and I'm not as afraid to fail at stuff. So perfect example is something, day of recording, it's December 9th. I have been trying to make a sourdough starter. For those of you that don't know, a sourdough starter is just this thing that kind of produces its own yeast, so you can make sourdough recipes like sourdough bread, etc. And the way you start it is you essentially take water and flour and you let it ferment, more or less. You let it just, quote unquote, go bad, and it makes its own yeast. Like you build these bacteria inside this fermenting dough, essentially, and you keep feeding it water and flour and, letting it do its thing, and it will build more bacteria, and it'll turn into a sourdough starter. And then it's just this like living thing that you maintain, and you make bread out of it. It's just super weird. His name is Gerald. He lives on my fridge right now. But today was the first day that I tried to make something with the starter, and it sort of didn't work. And it took me literally all day. It took me even till last night. Like, I took it out last night, and I took some of the starter and I put it in a bowl with a little bit more stuff, and tried to, get it to make this, what is it called? A levain? Anyways, it essentially is like, in place of yeast, you use the sourdough stuff, and, you add more flour, you add more water. And I worked on this bread literally from the moment that I woke up. It's now 9 p.m. and I think I took the bread out an hour ago, right? So it's been over 12 hours that I've been trying to get this bread to work. And I did make a loaf of bread. It's very dense. It's kind of, it didn't, the sourdough starter isn't like ready, right? I didn't give it enough time, and I took it out of the fridge and then tried to do stuff with it. And I think our house is too humid. So I learned a lot, right? And that's, I think, is my biggest takeaway. And it's the thing I missed growing up about failure, right? So the thing that I missed was failing, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I am a failure. I just don't know what I'm doing. I cannot figure this out. I'm worthless. All these horrible things that I kept saying to myself, right? Instead of that, what I should have done is turned around, instead of saying I'm a failure, and I should have said I failed. Okay? That's not a state of being. That is an action. Instead of the state of being where I tell myself that I am a failure, what I do instead is I'm me. I'm just who I am. And at this thing that I was trying to do, this action I was trying to do, I didn't complete it successfully. Okay? And now the second piece of what I missed out when I was a kid was, what did I learn? Right? Oh, had to get some water there. So, I think that's a great way to learn, is failing when you're in a decently supported state of being. And sometimes, unfortunately, if you're just not in a decently supported state of being, you can still learn a lot. You can still learn a lot from failure, for sure. And I think that's the biggest thing that I missed, like I said, was I failed, instead of I'm a failure, I failed. What did I learn? Okay? And for those of you who don't know, I have a miniatures collection. I play Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Marvel Crisis Protocol and a couple of other miniature games, little multi-part plastic miniatures that you glue together and you paint them. And I always hated painting them because they never turned out the way I wanted to, right? Let's cut back real quick to artists try over and over for years and build up their craft just by doing over and over, and they build up what everyone says is, oh, you're just talented, right? So I never gave myself that option of not doing it the way that I wanted to, not like having the mini not turn out the way I want, and then just figuring out, okay, what didn't work with that miniature? I never got that until like 5 years ago, I think, somewhere around there. And then I was kind of put in a position with a group of friends doing a different sort of content creation thing where I almost had to do miniatures. And I didn't have to. I felt like I had to. No one was like holding a weapon to my head and was like, hey, you need to do this. I chose to do it. But because I was doing it, I was learning, right? I was learning how to paint these miniatures. And I was failing at it. And I learned so much about failing. So there's this technique, it's called non-metallic metal. It's where you paint something that's supposed to look like metal, like armor, and you paint it with non-metallic paints, okay? So there's metallic paints where they have literal like shavings of metal to make them look shiny and make them look like metal, right? So you have like gray metallics, right? And then gold metallics and bronze and all that sort of stuff. And there's a way that you can paint these miniatures just using acrylic paints, regular acrylic paints that don't have these metal flakes in them, to make it look like they are metal. The first time I painted non-metallic metal gold, it was awful. So bad. And I thought it looked fantastic. And then looking back on it, I was like, wow, this is terrible. The second time I painted non-metallic metal gold, I learned so much from the first one that it looks really good. Like the second mini that I painted with non-metallic metal looks really fantastic. And the third one that I do in the future, whenever I get around to it, is going to look even better. And that's me just learning, like, you got to do more shadow here, bring it up to a brighter color quicker, etc., etc. Just like different techniques that you learn from painting these figures, right? And I've been collecting figures for over 20 years at this point. So, repetition. Learn from your failures. Do it over and over. And just, instead of saying I failed, I'm a failure, or I'm an idiot, or I'm not good enough, change it into an actionable statement where your state of mind is preserved, right, with positive thought instead of injecting yourself with a negative state of being, right? So instead of I'm a failure, you say I didn't do this right. What did I learn, right? Or that was a good try. It was a good first try. What did I learn? How do I do better next time? Okay? Instead of I'm a failure, just say I'm new at this. And that's okay. Because if somebody who you loved, or someone that you knew, or literally a random stranger on the street came up to you and was like, hey, I'm new at this thing and I'm trying to get better at it. What do you think about this? You'd be like, dude, you're doing great. You're doing fantastic. Like, this looks fantastic already. You wouldn't be like, wow, that looks like hot garbage. What are you doing? So, like, don't say that to yourself. You know what I mean? Don't say that thing looks like hot garbage to you if you wouldn't say it to someone else, right? Don't be that guy. Don't be that person to anyone, including you. So, yeah, I guess that's it. You know, learn from your failures, learn from your mistakes, instead of saying that you're not worth it. You know, just keep growing, because no matter how old you are, you're still growing, right? I'm going to be in my mid-30s here pretty soon, and I'm still growing. I'm still learning new things. I just learned how to make a sourdough starter, and I learned what not to do to make sourdough bread today. And then next week, I'm going to try again. And hopefully, you know, what I take from what I just tried now and process that thing that I learned, I'll be able to make it better. Have a not super dense and kind of like a rock loaf of bread. Get something a little better. But anyways, folks, I think that's all I want to go over today. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being here. Hit that like, subscribe, and all that random nonsense that we all say as YouTubers. I love y'all so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.